Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Through Adversity podcast. This morning we're doing a Q&A from my clients. I think I've got 5 or 6 questions here. Yep, we got 6 questions. So we're just going to kind of hop right into it. Again, some of these are real people's names. Some of them, I kept them anonymous because they asked to remain anonymous. They came through anonymous questionnaires. If you ever want your questions answered, either shoot me a DM on Facebook or Instagram or watch for when I do a question poll on my Instagram story. Ask the questions there. If it's a question that I get frequently, I'll do this and I'll break it down. I'm going to try to do these about once every 2 months. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Steve asked me, how do you stay disciplined and motivated all the time? So that one for me is pretty simple. I don't really even think about motivation. I'm not motivated a lot of the times, honestly, like none of us are. So we have days where we're motivated and we feel good. And we have other days where we fucking feel like shit and we just don't want to do anything. So I have never focused on motivation as like a main mechanism for me reaching my fitness or my business goals. Rather, I have always focused on discipline, because discipline, and this is just my theory and my idea, but I like to focus on things that I can actually control rather than on things that are out of my control. And motivation is out of my control. Motivation is an emotional state that's going to come and it's going to go. And I don't really have a whole lot of control when it comes and goes. So why would I bank something as important to me as my fitness goals or the growth of my business or my relationships on motivation? I wouldn't, because I don't have any control of motivation. That's governed by my emotions. Whereas discipline is governed by logic and conscious decision and right action. So I've always focused on discipline, and I've focused on rituals over emotion. So the human psyche is very tuned to rituals. Cheryl, you made it. I was doing everything I could, both of my phones. So one is Instagram and one is Facebook. And I saw your notification pop up, but I couldn't message you. I was already in the lives here. I would have had to cut out. So I'm glad you found it. If you ever miss it, there's always a replay on my YouTube, and I usually share a link. I try to remember to share a link to both the group and Facebook. But yeah, so I focus on rituals and not emotions. And the human psyche is super attuned to ritualistic thought, right? And obviously we think about rituals as religious experiences or spiritual experiences. And at their fundamental core, they are, but also it's any repetitive pattern. And our brains really evolved around these repetitive patterns. So you can utilize that to become more disciplined. Rather than relying on motivation, set non-negotiables and win the small battles. Like everybody, there's a term that's always stuck with me in archery, and it's aim big, miss big, aim small, miss small. So if you're aiming broadly at the side of an animal, you know, if you miss, you're going to miss the whole fucking animal. If you're aiming for a single hair behind its armpit there, if you miss, you might miss by a half an inch. You might even miss by a whole inch, but it's still likely going to be a kill shot. It's still likely going to be in that fatal organ patch right there. So aim small, miss small. Everybody focuses on the big shit, like on these huge, massive life overhauls. And they go from like 0 to 60, and they set all these like unrealistic, massive goals. And I'm going to start getting up at 4 a.m. and working out 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to meal prep every single day. And I'm never going to eat another fucking sugar, and I'm never going to drink another soda, and I'm never going to have another candy bar. And of course, it's not sustainable and it's too big of an endeavor. You've got to ease yourself into that kind of stuff, and you've got to focus on the small wins. So when I say small wins, win the small daily battles and you will win the discipline war. Things like wake up time. That's the biggest, most simple one to win in the morning. Set a regular wake up time, at least Monday through Friday or whatever your work days happen to be, and get up. Don't put the alarm on snooze. Don't let the day beat you in that first battle. Wake up. Meal times at the exact same time with the exact same ritual out of the same containers. That's another really easy daily battle to win. Movement, workout, set a step goal, make sure that you hit those. So these are non-negotiables, and they're the small stuff. But if you win the small stuff, if you win the small battles, eventually you will win the war, the greater war, right? But you can't just, I believe you've got to break it down into these smaller battles and focus on winning the smaller battles to slowly cultivate and build. Discipline is a muscle. It's something that the more you use it, the stronger it gets over time, just like our muscles. It's not something that's just inherently strong to start with, but it's something that if you work it on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, it's going to get better and stronger every time. So I've got a quote that I like: if you can't win the war in the morning, you'll lose the whole damn day. And I believe that's 100% true. You set the tempo, you set the pace in the morning on whether you're going to win the day or the day is going to own you. So the wake up time, getting up, having a morning ritual, getting yourself in a good mindset to face your day is going to be super, super important. So that's kind of my focus on the whole motivation thing. I don't really focus again on motivation. I focus on discipline because it's something that's in my control, whereas motivation isn't. Now, those days where you are feeling really motivated, those are the days where I go to the gym and I hit PRs. I've been doing this so long that I just kind of follow my body's rhythms in that. On the days that I feel really good and I'm motivated and I just go into the gym and I'm like ready to rock and I'm having fun, those are the days where like maybe I'll push the weight a little more. Maybe I'll get a couple more sets. Maybe I'll shoot for a PR on something because my body and my mind are like super aligned and we're ready to do it. The days where I don't, I just focus on my non-negotiables. I follow my program. I get the fuck in and I get the fuck out. But I still get everything done and I'm still progressing and growing. So yeah, don't focus on motivation. Focus on discipline. So number 2 question: what is the truth about cardio? There is so much misinformation on the internet. Do I need to be doing it? Do I not need to be doing it? Josh from Alaska. So that is a great fucking question. And cardio is one of the most controversial subjects in the fitness world today, other than like you get into some weird nutritional stuff like the fad diets and all that kind of stuff. But cardio is definitely controversial, and it really shouldn't be because it's pretty fucking simple. But cardio. So, and I think the problem is that we had this era in the 60s and the 70s and even into the 80s where cardio was like the main driving force of weight loss. It was seen as the main driving force of weight loss. And we still have those ideas in our mind, like residually, that cardio is a tool for weight loss and for fat loss. And the simple truth about that is it's not. It is probably the least effective mechanism for losing weight. Maybe not for losing weight, but for losing fat. And there's a big difference. So you'll hear me talk about, I will always say fat loss, because fat loss is what we want. Weight loss could be anything. It could be lean muscle tissue. It could be fat. It could be water. It's just a reduction in the weight of the body, which is not something that we're interested in at all, right? So when we're talking about weight loss, what we're actually meaning is fat loss. And cardio is incredibly ineffective for fat loss because it spikes your cortisol levels up, which causes your body to retain more fat. And the deficit that you create, the amount of calories you burn in cardio, unless you're a marathon runner, is really not that impressive. Like you can do a hard hour, a miserable hour on the treadmill, boring as fuck, standing there staring at a wall, and you'll burn like 400 calories. You know what I mean? So it's like, which is like one donut. So a lot of people think that they can out cardio a shitty ass diet, and it's not true. And that's why you'll just watch them get fatter and fatter every day. So yeah, cardio is not a fat loss tool. And we don't use it in my program as a fat loss tool. We use weightlifting and we use a caloric deficit as a fat loss tool. And that's the key. You have to, fat is lost through nutrition. Fat is lost in the kitchen, not in the gym, period, 100%. The gym will augment that a little bit, but fat is lost in the kitchen and not in the gym. So that is the emphasis of the primal method, is that we're going to lose fat through nutrition. We're going to build muscle through training, which is then going to accelerate the fat loss. But so what does cardio do? Cardio it matters because it helps. It's good. It's good for your heart. It improves your VO2 max. It increases your insulin sensitivity. It increases mitochondrial density. So those are the energy houses in your cells. It makes them larger and more dense, so they're able to create more energy. And it has a really heavy role in longevity and heart health. So cardio isn't something that should just be totally neglected. Now, I will add the caveat that a lot of, if you're lifting weights with short rests, you are doing a type of cardio. All cardio is getting your heart rate above a certain level. And we're going to talk about that next. So what is cardio? It's based on your heart rate and your intensity and your proximity to your maximum heart rate. The closer you are to your maximum heart rate, the more intense your cardio is. So what the most common method that we use to measure cardio is the zones method. So zone 1 is like normal activities throughout the day, and that is like non-cardiovascular normal waking activities. Zone 2 is low intensity cardio. So this is 60 to 70%. This is your base aerobic work. So this is going to give you a good strong baseline. It's going to improve fat oxidation. It's going to improve mitochondrial health, and it's going to help you lose a lot of fat without burning any muscle. So I'm a big fan of zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 is, so your max heart rate is calculated by taking 220 beats per minute, which is the max human heart rate, safe human heart rate, and then subtracting your age from it. That gives you your maximum heart rate, right? And then from there, you're going to find a percentage for zone 2. It's going to be 60 to 70% of max heart rate. So what I tell people, for most people, that's going to be somewhere between like 100 if you're a little bit older, like 100 to 115 if you're a little bit older. Like me, I think mine is 110 to 125. So it's going to be based on your age, but it's going to be like somewhere between 100 and maybe 130 beats a minute, right? And you're going to get into that stage. Now, the thing with zone 2, the rule with cardio as a general overarching principle is that the lower the intensity, the longer the duration. The higher the intensity, the shorter the duration. So zone 2 is the lowest intensity, so it requires the longest duration. To get the best results out of zone 2 cardio for overall heart health and fat loss, putting yourself in a little bit more of a deficit and increasing fat oxidation, those things that will help with fat loss a little bit, somewhere in the 30 to 60 minute range, about 2, no more than 4 times a week, but really 2 is ideal. 3 is like if you're really, really, really heavily on a fat loss journey and you want to totally maximize your cardio, that's probably good. 4, I think, is kind of overkill unless you're like a professional bodybuilder or athlete. So zone 3 is going to be 70 to 80%. This is tempo work. So this would be like a light sprint, a light jog with intermittent intervals of sprinting in there at about 80 or 90% of your max. So this occurs 70 to 80% of max heart rate. Tempo work. This improves the lactate threshold. So the lactate threshold is the point where your body can no longer use aerobic energy that's coming from oxygen for low intensity activities, and it has to switch over to anaerobic activity because the lactate is accumulating so fast that your body can no longer flush it out. So you're going to switch over to an anaerobic pathway for energy, and you're going to fucking exhaust much quicker. So this is when you see, with professional athletes in high intensity sports, fighting, MMA, I have them do a lot of zone 3 and zone 4 and 5 cardio because we want to raise their lactate threshold. We want them to be able to stay in essentially an aerobic based energy pathway because they're fighting for so long, 15 minutes, and without having to switch to an anaerobic one because you'll see them gas out. That's when you watch a fight and somebody gasses out. That's what happens is they ran out of aerobic energy. They had too low of a lactate threshold. They were switched over to anaerobic and they just used all the energy in their muscles, and then they were fucking dead and got beat up. So for athletes, super important. For kind of just normal people, it's still important. It's good to get you, it'll raise your VO2 max, it'll raise that lactate threshold, but you don't need to do it much. It's like maybe for serious athletes, maybe twice a week. For everybody else, maybe once a week, or even every other week, or even in intermittent intervals in the training blocks, like when you're on a cutting block or something like that. Once you're conditioned too, this isn't something that I'll program for somebody that's like brand new to lifting. This is something that for somebody that's been with me for like 3 to 6 months and onwards. So zone 4 and 5, this is going to be HIIT, high intensity interval training, and sprints. Very time efficient, but incredibly high fatigue threshold. So this we're going to use sparingly. Now there's 2 different ways to do this. If you rest a long time between those intense bursts, it's going to build up your speed and power because your body's going to use, so it runs on a purely anaerobic energy pathway. It's not using oxygen at all. It's using intracellular energy and energy stored in your liver as glycogen to do these really explosive, powerful movements. So done in short bursts with long rest, it's going to increase your speed and power. If it's done basically with still short intervals with short rest, then it's just conditioning because you're not restoring any of those. You're not restoring the cellular energy you need to explosively to do these explosive type movements, but you are really taxing your cardiovascular system and improving your VO2 max. And so again, this is something that probably not super important for most people, but for high level athletes, depending on the sport, this can be very relevant. So that is the breakdown on cardio. Again, look at it as we're doing it for health reasons, to keep our heart health up, and for longevity reasons, maybe for some performance reasons. We are not using it as our main tool for fat loss. As long as you can draw that distinction in your brain that you're going to lose fat in the kitchen, you're going to build muscle in the gym, then cardio is great and it can be really good for your heart. But now I will also add the caveat that cardio does increase stress hormones. So that's the other reason why I only like 2 days a week tops for people that are trying to build muscle and trying to lose weight, because cortisol is catabolic. It's going to break down muscle tissue, which is going to slow down fat loss. It's going to slow down your metabolism. It's going to put a lot of stress on your central nervous system. None of these things we really want, especially when we're adding stress through regular weight training too. So it's definitely a balance, and it's going to be kind of tailored to each individual. Different people will have more resiliency towards cardio and others won't. Another thing is zone 2 is going to give you the least amount of metabolic byproducts and cortisol spikes and stress hormone spikes. So another reason why I highly encourage zone 2 cardio. All right, this one is going to be more for the men in my audience because it's a very male specific question. I get this one all the time. I've got super low energy and I think my testosterone is low. What are your thoughts on TRT? TRT stands for testosterone replacement therapy, which is becoming more and more popular in the modern generation, where it's kind of less stigmatized than it used to be in the past. So what I always tell people that ask me this, because it is a concern for men, especially over the age of 30, and as they get crawl up closer to 40, 50, our testosterone levels naturally start decaying after about the age of 21. They start to go down. They peak. They start in our teens with puberty, and then they peak, and then they in our late teens, early 20s, and then they're on a steady decline for virtually the rest of our life. That's wired into us for evolutionary reasons. So now, since the 50s, they did some studies in the 50s, and the overall baseline average for testosterone was about 3 times higher than it is in modern males. So they think it's microplastics. They think it's horrible. The Western diet has gotten so much worse. The stress of living in a modern society, which we definitely did not evolve to live under these conditions, all cramped together with no space, no real attachment to nature. None of this is good for us on a psychological level, and none of it apparently is good for us on a hormonal level. A really interesting study recently, they did autopsies on like 60 cadavers, males and females, and they found microplastics in their sex organs in 100% of the people they did the people that they studied and they did the autopsies on. So now there is a barrier that is supposed to keep foreign objects out of your testicles and your ovaries. Just like you have a blood-brain barrier, you have the same thing in your sex organs to protect those. And these microplastics, nanoplastics, actually are so small that they can defeat that barrier and get into these very vulnerable organs. So they haven't proven a causal link directly between microplastics and the decay of testosterone. It's mostly a hypothesis at this stage, but a very strong hypothesis and disconcerting either way. That we've got microplastics in our brain, in our sex organs, is a little bit spooky, even though they haven't shown a direct causal link to cancer or to anything else. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean they're not going to find it. So it's a little bit scary. We can talk about microplastics and how to mitigate the threat of that in a different video. It's too complicated of a subject to go into here. But there is a lot of theory that that's why testosterone levels are decaying in men. So before we can really talk about testosterone, we've got to talk about what, or TRT or testosterone levels. We have to talk about what testosterone does. So testosterone is an anabolic and an androgenic hormone. And in fact, all of the male steroid hormones are derived originally from the molecule of testosterone, which they synthesized and separated in the 1930s. And very rapidly after that, athletes found out they could improve their performance with it, and hence started the age of steroids, which goes all the way back to the 50s, but it didn't really become more mainstream and more popular until the 80s. It was like Olympic level athletes before like the 80s, and then it became much cheaper and much more readily available. So testosterone is anabolic and androgenic. Anabolic means nutrient partitioning. So it partitions different nutrients where they are supposed to go. And that means it doesn't let your body store fat. It blocks off your fat stores, liberates energy from fat, and it channels glucose into the places where it needs to be stored as glycogen, helps you use it more efficiently as fuel, and it really, really increases the synthesis of protein and the creation of new muscle tissue. So we see those are the main effects, anabolic, and then androgenic are masculinizing effects. That is the growth of facial hair, that is the deepening of the voice, hence why boys go through this at puberty. So that is what testosterone does. Now, if your testosterone levels are low, they're going to say, the generic symptoms for it are low energy, low libido, unable to grow muscle tissue, unable to recover, sleep problems. There's a whole slew that could be related to a lot of other things. What I always tell guys is like, how's your lifestyle first? Like, how is your sleep quality? Like, that's number one. If you're tired all day and you feel like shit and you have low libido, well, how many hours a night are you sleeping? Oh, you're sleeping 4 hours a night. Well, that's probably the fucking problem. There's probably nothing wrong. Also, testosterone is synthesized while we sleep. So if you're not getting a good restful night of deep sleep, of course, you've got low testosterone levels, and TRT isn't going to fix that. It's going to give you fake testosterone that's not your own, but it's not going to fix the underlying problem of why you're not recovering and why you don't fucking feel good. It's not a miracle cure. It's not a fountain of youth by any means, and that's what guys have twisted in their minds. So number one, sleep quality, deep restorative sleep, lights off, cool room, all the basic fucking shit you guys hear people talk about all the time, and trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And this also, although this is obviously framed more for men because testosterone is the male hormone, this is like, it applies to women too, because all of our hormones, all of our sex hormones are synthesized and regulated at night in deep sleep. So if you're not getting a good night's sleep, you're likely hormonally imbalanced. In a world where we're already having things attacking our hormones, give your body the best chance it can to be in the most hormonally stable position possible. So get a good night's sleep. That's super important. That's number one. That's what I always tell guys. Start with your sleep. Number two, nutrition. We need to look at your nutrition. Are you getting your full macronutrient profile? So are you getting at least 20% of your diet coming from fats? All sex hormones, testosterone, etc., are synthesized from cholesterol, which comes from fat. So if you're not eating adequate amounts of fat, then your hormones are going to be imbalanced 100%. And so you got to have at least 20% fat. 20 to 30% is usually a good fat range in the diet. That's generally what I always set. And then you want to have good protein levels so that you can rebuild muscle tissue. You're saying, oh, I'm not rebuilding muscle tissue. Yeah, well, you're eating 100 grams of protein a day. Like, of course you're not building muscle tissue. You're not even eating enough protein to maintain the muscle tissue you have. I see that with people all the time. And then, carbohydrates, that you're getting enough calories and you're getting enough energy and enough fuel. So, and then the other side of this is going to be micronutrients and electrolytes, magnesium, zinc, B12, sodium, potassium. These are also going to play a heavy role in how you feel, because they're going to, the electrolytes especially, I mean, they control your heartbeat, they control your heart rhythm, they control a lot in your body, and you sweat them out every time you work out. So if you're not restoring those electrolytes, then you're probably electrolyte deficient, and that's going to be a problem, and you're going to feel like shit. And then micronutrients, all the phytonutrients, the zoonutrients, all the stuff that you're going to get from plants, that you're going to get from different animal products, that you're going to get from a good, clean, wholesome, unprocessed diet, are going to be key to feeling good. Because if you're low in vitamin B, or you're low in vitamin D, or you're low in any of these vitamins or any of these nutrients, you're going to feel like shit, because your body's not operating at an optimal cellular level. So definitely number 2 is going to be check out your diet, check out your nutrition, make sure you're covered on both a macronutrient and a micronutrient level. And then training and nutrition consistency. Training has been shown to raise testosterone. Training has also been shown to balance out cortisol, and to balance out all of the other stress hormones that can inhibit the creation of these regular hormones that we like and that we want. So make sure that your training is super dialed in. If all of that is good, and if you're honest about it, I mean, it's your health, it's your body, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But if you ask me for advice, so those are the things that I always recommend people check first before they even consider looking at TRT or any of the other things that go along with that. So if all that's dialed in and all of that is legitimately good, and you're not just lying to yourself about it, then what I recommend is you get blood work. You can go and get a full hormone and vitamin panel and get everything checked out. So normal ranges for testosterone for men are between 300 and 1,000 nanograms to deciliters. And then your free testosterone should be somewhere like 5 to 25 PGs to milliliters. For women, it's much lower. It's like 15 to 70 nanograms to deciliters. But women do still need, if they're under 15, they're not going to feel good, and they're going to have issues too. They do still need testosterone, just in much lower levels than men do. So then you can see where you're at on the normal range. Also know that your testosterone, just like any other hormone, undulates. It goes up and it goes down. And those undulations can be huge. They can be like hundreds of nanograms per deciliter. So you might want to get a couple tests at a couple different times. Usually your levels are highest in the morning after you wake up, because your body creates it overnight. And then they're lowest by the end of the day. So, you can kind of play with that and see. So if all of that goes and you are still low, I highly recommend that you go and try to boost them naturally first. I will post a link in the description to Dr. Cody Crockett. He has it, and it used to be free. I don't know if he's still offering it for free or not, but he has an awesome fucking course that I've taken myself on how to naturally boost your testosterone levels. He has done a shitload of research, super smart dude. And I will put a link to his Instagram on in the bio here, so that you guys, he's got a lot of good content overall on hormones and biohacking and stuff like that. Like I said, I follow him, and I've done a couple of his courses. So and I'm not an expert in this. He is. So I would highly recommend you check out somebody who really knows what the fuck they're talking about. And I like his stuff because he really knows what the fuck he's talking about. Most people on like Instagram and all the like testosterone boosters and shit like that you see popping up, they're a fucking scam. They're salesmen. They're just trying to get your money. None of that shit really works. But Cody Crockett has really gone through all the research and figured out what actually does work for some people, not for everybody. But yes, it's definitely possible. So if that fails, you fucking went and got your blood work. It sucks. And your testosterone's like 150 nanograms to deciliters. Not good. You tried to boost it naturally, couldn't get it up into an ideal range. An ideal range is probably 600 to 900 nanograms to deciliter for somebody who's working out and trying to get the most out of it. And you just can't do it. It's just not working. Your body, that's called hypogonadism. And it just means your body cannot produce testosterone on its own. So then you can go get TRT, and that means testosterone replacement therapy. So the problem with this is what's going to happen, and it's not really a problem because everything can be mitigated and it is pretty safe. But everything can be mitigated, but there are some side effects, and some of them are not really fucking cool. So it shuts down what's called the HPGA axis, which is the hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis, and that is an axis of communication between your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, and your gonads. And men have it, and women have it, and it is the thing that drives.